Hello everyone, this is Tim, and I'm going to be going over the race called the Tynd, T-Y-N-D, and plural is Tynds, T-Y-N-D-S. This race was kind of half built by me and half built by my friend Jim, who goes by the nickname of Udall, and I think he's actually a subscriber to my channel, although he doesn't comment on it very much. But this was built as part of a world building project that was kind of a disappointment. I had high hopes for it, but in the end I ended up doing most of the work. So I think that's why I'm trying to do this world building project a little bit more, I don't know, with anarchy involved, where I'm just kind of throwing it out to you guys and you guys can do whatever you want. But this race, they have elongated pointed ears that they like to pierce and cut, and they have different metal objects shoved through them, earrings, etc. They have a single curved horn that rises from the top of their skull and bends downwards down their back. They have large mouths and sharp teeth. They have solid golden eyes and two small holes on their face where their nose should be. Their faces also have random lines of bone and cartilage that contrast well with their dark skin. Their body, they are covered in black leathery skin that hangs a little off of their bones. They are skinny and tall, roughly 6 feet tall on average, and they only have sparse hair on their shoulders and head. They have long dexterous fingers with sharp fingernail claws. Fat is almost non-existent on their bodies, so these guys would make very good stick figure models, I guess, if you're into that sort of thing. They have a fondness for golden and metal bands, but that's more with their culture. They're usually hard workers, and they like to enjoy themselves with great vigor. The origin of the race is that they were believed to be summoned and changed by one of their gods. There are also half-Tynds, which are basically breeds. They're like a half-breed between a Tynd and an outsider from some hellish nether region, and that comes into being with certain festivals that they have, which they enjoy with great abandon. They are more dexterous and less intelligent. They can see pretty good at night. They have very good hearing. They move pretty quickly. They are normally resistant to all forms of poison because they self-poison themselves. They have a strange ability of being able to walk on magical ley lines that can't really be seen, but that can be felt. Water, they don't drink it, and if they're exposed to it, it burns them. Almost like holy water would burn. That might be a good analogy. But it's basically to all water. They have claws they can use as natural weapons, and that's pretty much the basis of the Tynd. I'll go into more details with their culture. Hello everyone, this is Tim, and this is the Tynd Culture, T-Y-N-D. And some of the things that I want to talk about mainly are that they do not wear clothing in the traditional sense. They like to wear bands of metal all over their bodies, on their arms. They also like to pierce themselves in their ears. They like to cut their flesh and cut chunks of their flesh out to make them look a little bit different. They like golden and just metal, silvery bands. They are a very hard-working race in kind of an obsessive way. They work constantly on whatever task is put in front of them. If they're laborers, or if they're making something or carving something, if they're a craftsman. They'll spend long hours just incessantly working on this thing, and they just focus on it so much that there's actually kind of an instilled festival culture where they work very, very hard, and then they have days of wild abandon where anything is pretty much allowed. Anything is on the table. All of Tyria just breaks down into some sort of chaos. And it almost takes them roughly until the next time the next festival comes up to clean up the damage, to kind of get things back on track to be able to have another festival. So it's kind of very orderly and then very chaotic. There's basically 2 to 4 festival days, basically between like every month of time, where they just go nuts and just have a really good time. All work stops during the festival days, and the entire country breaks down into a degenerate party that would make a Roman blush. Sex, drugs, alcohol, and music are basically non-existent throughout the entire focused month of work, but during the festival nights, all of these are in abundant supply, and they really just delve into that side of themselves that they ignore the rest of the time. There's lots of pregnancies that happen during this time. Children are taken into governmental custody and are assigned to a family. So it's very tyrannical, sort of, where you work really hard, you go have fun, and then the consequences of that action are basically taken into account by the government. Let's see here, what else we got? Most of the citizens do not question the order and structure of the society. There are a few outsiders that are trying to, bring the process down from basically from the inside, but most of them just go along with everything. They're very sort of docile in their sort of sheepish, sheep-like mannerisms. I don't know. During the party days, demons and devils from the abyss have taken notice of the debauchery and frequently visit the material plane during these festival days. And that is allowed. There are, the whole chaotic nature and, just evil nature of these events, just completely giving, opening yourself up to whatever, kind of is sort of a beacon for those beings. The demons and devils are always polymorphed, so they don't panic people, but because of this, there is a large population of half-breed, half-demon, or half-devil, half-tins is what they're called in this society, which basically have demonic or devilish blood in them. And the half-tins can find themselves on the outskirts of society, but they generally fit in pretty well. The last couple days of the festival days are for rest, recuperation, and hangovers. So I think the festival days are pretty interesting, and it's kind of like a cyclical process of really hard work fixing everything, destroying the shit out of everything, and then fixing it all again. So that provides work, especially for everyone to do, because there's a lot of damage that happens. So visiting this kingdom while they're in a festival day would be pretty interesting. There are high infant mortality rates in Tyria, but not really sure why that is. A lot of the children are stillborn and horribly mangled. During these festival days, the rebel groups that are starting to form in the kingdom have the most sway, and they can kind of come out from their secret bunkers and try to not corrupt, but to sway people to their side of thinking that the government needs overthrown. That is the majority of their culture. They really don't have a lot of taboos and intricate things in the culture themselves. They're just obsessive hard workers. And then when they have a hoedown, it's very destructive, very raunchy, and it's almost like they just flip a coin, you know. Most of the month they're on heads, but you know, for those 2 to 4 festival days, they really just give in totally to abandon and just wild experimentation. So that is the culture of the Tynd. All right, this is Tim, and this is going to be about the religion of the Tynd and of Tyria, which is their hex. The religion really favors hard work and forgives and encourages the festival days between the months as a way to relieve stress and anxiety and to let all of your cares kind of sink away from your heart. For the 2 to 4 day period between the months when the festivals are held, they recommend following the spirit of those holy days, for that is what the religion says they are, holy. There are 2 deities, but in some ways it's only one. It's kind of interesting. Nareik, Nareik, which has the domains of creation, domination, and dream. He is a childlike god, in sort of a terrible way. He generally appears to be a young boy, but he has been known to appear as a frightful demon when angered. Nareik is the son of Eldoi, Eldooy, Eldoi? I don't know, I think that's how you pronounce it, who allowed him to create the realm of Tyria so that he could practice his abilities. Like a child, Nareik has other interests, and therefore frequently forgets that Tyria even exists. Generally, he is kind and will help the people of the land to live better lives, but he does have a very kind of wide mean streak that can be downright unholy. He has been known to take out his anger on the world when he is in a particularly unpleasant mood. Nareik, being angry at Eldoi, the father figure sort of, for making him do so much work, decided upon a course of action that still makes many other gods and demigods shudder to this day. Nareik began the construction of what was to be his world, but in the early stages, Nareik called his father Eldoi to him for advice and counseling. Eldoi approached willingly and with great joy that his child would ask for advice and not for him to do it for him. Leaning over the shoulder of Nareik to see what he was doing, he saw a strange thing. In Nareik's the son's hands was a dark, long, and sharp dagger that had been Nareik's hard labor from the start. In shock, Eldoi was stabbed in the heart by his son. At first, Eldoi thought nothing of it, for he was a god and immune to such things, or so he thought. The dagger was made just for this purpose, and with it the son sucked all of his father's divine power into the blade. The blade's name was Napinal, which means needle. Eldoi's last words were a plea to his son of why. With the body of his father laid before him, Nareik began to eat. He removed all of his organs and slowly and with great joy consumed all of his father's flesh. The rest of the body was divided and cut apart and placed in the 6 corners of the hex to give his new creation great power and to serve as a foundation. Nareik called upon the power in his stomach and formed the solid black volcanic glass ground with thousands of spires that his people would dwell on. So the hex is literally made out of black volcanic glass. He then created the magical ley lines that float in the sky. And they do give off light. I messed that up in the first video. Later, when the power lust faded, and Nareik the son, realizing what he had done in his anger, wept for his father. Sitting alone in the center of the glossy black volcanic glass, he answered his father's question then, of why. Because I can. That is your answer, father. It was not long after that he summoned the demons that would later become the Tynd. He basically took demons and inserted a soul into them and changed them slightly. He didn't want to do all the creating himself, so he took what was already in existence and changed them and gave them something that they didn't have. You know, a demon with a soul inside of them, essentially. And those became the Tynds. The Order of Eldoi is a second religion to be found in Tyria. Its followers are few, but they are determined and faithful. The Order of Eldoi is an order of religious monks that reside in monastic temples at the 6 corners of the land. Each temple has an artifact that is a body part of the dead god Eldoi. The monks meditate and mourn for the death of their god and the betrayal of his son that murdered him. They believe that in future time that the parts of Eldoi can be reunited and somehow bring about the birth or the rebirth of their god, and that he may once again live and wreak vengeance on his power-hungry son. The Order fears the wrath of Narek, and so far has not attempted to move the body parts of Eldoi from the 6 corners of the realm. So that's a little bit of background there. I think that's a little bit more time. So there's Narek, the son, and Eldoi, the father. Okay, this is more the creation myth. So Eldoi doesn't really have any domains, or at least the Order of Eldoi doesn't know what they are. So there are no domains listed, so that's kind of open-ended for whatever GM wants to do that. And there are demigods of Tyria. They're called Goodlit, or Goodlits, which basically means like a little god. Instead of making demigods from scratch, Narek instead raises all of the previous leaders of the government to be these Goodlits. These leaders that did not live up to the god's standards are not raised to this level, however. So basically, if you lead the people and you lead them well, and you do what the god asks, that you can achieve demigodhood. The fact that the government kind of fights with some of the religious people at times, however they end up in the afterlife is up to the god, obviously, but the ones that fight more, you would think, would not become demigods. Some normal Tynds that aren't in government are raised because they perform some special task. It is less frequent, however. Half-demons are raised to be Goodlits twice as often as the common Tynd, so they sort of have an advantage because of their demonic bloodline, because they have more power, or maybe Narek just thinks they're interesting. Yeah, so that is basically their religion and how they operate, how they do things, and it's basically the idea of a son killing the father and making the creation not really with just his own power, but with stolen power. The idea of a place that has no water and is just black volcanic glass with glowing ley lines in the sky just is very vivid. I think that's why the reason I wanted to do this hex first. I just always thought that was kind of a neat idea. So I'll see you later. Hello, this is Tim again, and I'm going to go over the map for Tyria, which is the land of the Tynd race. And before I start, I want to just clarify something. I'm very happy with how the HexWorld videos and comments and text responses have been on YouTube. When I was referring to in the first video about Tyria, about the group project not working, was when I tried to do this project locally with some of the people I know, it just kind of fell apart then. I'm ecstatic about how much you guys have been helping out with this project, putting forth your own ideas and videos. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you very much for participating, everybody that's sent out their ideas. I think a lot of the ideas are really cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing more ideas in the future. Alright, so getting back to Tyria and the Tynd. Like I said, Tyria is a land that kind of defies the mind. It's one giant solid piece of black volcanic glass, and it has thousands of jutting black volcanic spires that reach up into the skies. In the sky itself, there is a lattice work of glowing magical ley lines, and they literally just crisscross the sky from just all over the place. The only plants that grow are from the energy absorbed from the ley lines. They actually live off of magical energy. There are large pits of hellfire that spew into the air and give the world a reflected red hue off the black volcanic glass. And like I said, that's kind of the backdrop You're looking at the map right now, and it has letters and numbers on it, and I wanted to do that for various reasons. I wanted to make sure that there's places there that you could look at and incorporate things into your own, however you wanted to do them. I didn't really flesh everything out. The main thing that I wanted to talk about was that the adventure sites are listed alphabetically, and that the cities and towns are numbers on the map. So that you can go through. I came up with names for all of the cities. Number 1 is Undaga, which means evade. Number 2 is Overalt in Gensteds, everywhere, nowhere. Number 3 is Lydig Næring, which is obedient nourishment. Number 4 is Bedvidstlos Kunskab, which means unconscious knowledge. Number 5 is Lagt Tagelse Derunder, which is observation hell. Number 6 is the capital city of Nogensid Fald, which means Everfall. It's named after the massive hole that formed in the center of the city at the time of the Great Quake. There was a Great Quake in history. Most believe that the hole is a bottomless pit, thus the city's name, but in reality is a gateway to the abyss. This is one of the many ways that the demons come into Tyria during the festival days. Number 7 is Trait Arbiger, which means tired laborer. Number 8 is Tilsa Men, which means together. Number 9 is Sterk Vertjdolk, which means strong tools. Number 10 is Kempe, which means struggle. 11 is Stoff Overthrow, which is substance superstition. 12 is Overga, which means surpass. 13 is Stot, which means sustain. 14 is Hurtig, which is swift. 15 is Tag Bort, which is take away. 16 is Anstrengelse, which means tension. 17 is Van Skellig Arbegd, which means hard work. 18 is Undersig, which is wonder. 19 is End New Levrende, which means yet alive. 20 is Phobie Ol, which is beyond ale. And 21 is Hodgtig Wild, which means party wild. Okay, so those are the cities and towns. I like that they have names that can kind of be a starting point, but I don't really have any sort of description other than the capital city. And like I said, the adventure sites is another one that I'll go into. But I wanted to just stress that it's black volcanic glass, there's lots of spires and glowing ley lines in the sky. Thanks for participating, everybody. Well, this is Tim. Most of the monsters in Tyria are actually possessed animals and creatures that live in the Hex, basically the flora and the fauna, as well as demons and devils that have entered the Hex through the hellfire cracks in the black volcanic glass and have stayed past. Basically, they've stayed after the festival days have ended, and they make their living pretending to be a Tynd, and trying to corrupt or trying to do whatever demons and devils like to do. So sadly, there really wasn't any monsters made for Tyria when the project, my first run through of this idea locally. So there really isn't too many monsters per se. But basically, if you take any of the animals or creatures of the Hex and kind of add a demonic or a devilish template to them, I'd be leaving that to the GMs and DMs out there. But there's lots of quirky animals that have kind of bizarre aberrations, and I'll be getting into it in the flora and fauna section. But most of the animals eat volcanic glass. Most of the plants absorb the magical energy from the ley lines. Some of the animals attack the Tynd to try to kill them, but not too many. And that's pretty much about it. Lots of devils, lots of demons, lots of kind of twisted creatures that have, demons or devil influence on them or possess them. And that's about it. I'll see you in the next video. Now I'll start talking about the adventure sites of Tyria. There are outposts, at least that's what they have been called by me and the creator. If you want to go with the subculture of those that don't want to work all the time and sort of the half demon, half devils, there could definitely be an underground sort of resistance to that sort of culture in hidden places where they live, and they're sort of wary of outsiders. Kind of like speakeasies, sort of like secret places where you can meet and try to organize sabotaging, the structure, the government, the businesses, and the sort of the corporate atmosphere of the culture. These subcultures could work together as a whole, or you could have them sort of being just isolated areas that aren't very organized. They don't like the fact that the government works everyone to the bone all the time, and they definitely post resistance. They'd have a sort of a lazy feel to them, but they would definitely be dangerous places to those that didn't know the secret passwords and so forth. They really don't have a spot on the map, but that's just something to throw out there. I don't have adventure sites listed for all of the letters on the map, but I am going to go through and label some of them. These refer to the letters. Ansite means face. This is letter A. It's the temple on the edge of the world that houses a body part of Eldoy. B doesn't have anything, so that's open for any GMs. And I'll just go through and list the ones I do have. Tilvestri Ben, which means left leg. It's the temple on the edge of the world that houses a body part of Eldoy. F, Dor Beklage. It's the gateway of mourning, but it's Mourning, like sadness. Criminals of government are exiled from lands of Tyria via this gateway to a horrible plane of existence. G, Tilhorje Ben, means right leg. It's the temple on the edge of the world that houses another body part of Eldoy. H is the anti-magic tower of Vlesto. Roughly in the center of the volcanic class lands, ages ago, a crazy hermit spent most of his days working on ways to eliminate magic and its foul taint from the lands. Speaking to a powerful demon lord, Vlesto learned the secret for making all of the area around his hut suck magic from any who would approach him. He built a tower where his hut used to be. Vlesto as a child was taken advantage of by a magic user who dominated him for years. Vlesto also has many other forms of anti-magic items in his tower that are rumored to be above a massive underground lair of some powerful sleeping beast. Vlesto has made friends with this creature, and it is by that creature's power that he still lives longer than he should. The government doesn't trust him, but they're also very leery of trying to stop him. They are afraid of his power. So even the powerful government of Tyria is afraid of this man, of this Tynd. There are also hundreds, if not thousands, of very tall jetting black volcanic glass towers that stab into the sky. These aren't lettered on the map, but these towers were built over many centuries ago to harness the magical energy of the ley lines in the sky. These are the glowing magical rivers, if you will, in the sky. The towers have many levels to adjust the changing height of the glowing latticework lines of magical energy in the air, because they kind of undulate and they change. It's sort of like a random fashion. There is no set pattern, sort of like the tides of the ocean, but there's nothing set in stone. So that's why they have very different levels on these spires, so that they can basically stand in the river of magical energy to try to absorb some of it. Many of these towers are at focal points where two or more ley lines intersect. It is said that when two or more of the magical ley lines intersect, that there is more power to be harnessed there. Many powerful spells are performed high above the ground, standing on these towers. So basically, they sort of aid magic. So that was H. With the anti-magic tower, and these spires are all over the place, not necessarily just at H. M, Brist Abjadar, is chest and hands. It's a temple on the edge of the world that houses another body part of Eldoy. O, Tilvestre Fod, means left foot. It's the temple on the edge of the world that houses a body part of Eldoy as well. It's left foot. And P isn't labeled on the map, but it's the dot on the right side of the map. I forgot to label it. Tilhorje Fod, right foot. Temple on the edge of the world that houses another body part of Eldoy. These are, like I said, there's a lot of letters in there that weren't filled out, but again, this was sort of half filled in, half worked up. I did half the work of the original creator, and I wanted to kind of leave some more room for anyone to come in and plop some adventure sites down that they wanted to put in here. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to go start on another video now. Thanks for watching. Hello, this is Tim, and this is going to be the history of Tyria. There are some dates that are kind of glossed over, and when anybody else does their video response to these or text response, you can go into this much detail, not this much detail. You can go into even more detail if you're a big history buff. But this is what I have for Tyria. I could have expanded on it, but I'm just going to pretty much just tell you what I have already. From the year 1 to 1547, the lands of Tyria were pretty much made up of one solid piece of volcanic glass. Once this was done, the god kind of sat and thought, wondering what he was to do, what he was going to make, who he was going to create to inhabit this flat, dark land. And it took him a long time. He didn't really get about it too quickly. He was probably lamenting the fact that he killed his father, although beforehand he really didn't think his actions thoroughly, all the way through. In the year 1548, unable to come up with his own race, the god summoned 100 demons into Tyria. By doing this, so forcefully, he tore great rifts of hellfire into the volcanic glass that burn to this day. He stripped the demons of their demonic powers, gave them a soul, and changed them to his liking, so that in the end, they were not what they originally were. In form, they kind of still resembled mostly what they were, but they were forever changed and given the name Tynd, T-Y-N-D. He made them male and female so they could breed and bring forth young versions of themselves. From the year 1549 to 1667, the god was mad that his newly made people did not act as he had hoped they would. They tortured and killed one another. Battles broke out, sides were drawn, and in the end the killing and innocent blood spilled brought forth the bloodiest civil war in Tynd's history. Much of the race was destroyed during this time. In the year 1667, a monstrous quake destroyed even more of the Tynd civilization, the stuff that had survived the Civil War, and almost made the Tynd an extinct race. The survivors decided to stop the fighting in hopes to make a brighter future for their children. But by rebuilding, they learned to trust one another and help one another basically try to crawl back to the shores of civilization. From the year 1668 to 1723, the god wanted to help those still living and decided to save them from themselves by forcing them into a strict culture of hard work and discipline with relatively short periods of rest and excitement. These are the festival days. Left to themselves and to their ways, the Tynds almost destroying themselves. So this forced structure and hard labor was thought to be good for the race. In 1724, the god instills the first leader and appoints the first group of Raid, R-A-D-E, and informs them how to govern in Tyria and how it should be run. And I'll go more into that into the government thread, the government video. In 1725 to 1846, several rebellions are brutally shut down by the government. This brutal retaliation makes rebel groups find less obvious ways to sabotage the goals of the government. In 1847 to 1848 and 49, Tyria is overwhelmed with extremely high infant mortality rates as many of them are born stillborn and horribly mangled. The cause was never found, but many attribute it to something supernatural. From 1850 to 1928, a rebellion of workers rise up and start a civil war between those that want to keep the culture as it is and those that wanted to change to promote more freedom during the long months of work. The rebels are crushed because of their dwindling numbers, and their high losses soak the battlefields in blood. From 1927 to 2246, a long peace happens in which work was completed on the cities of the realm. It was during this time that many of the cities of Tyria are founded and constructed. 2247 to 2648, the demon wars were started when a group of powerful demons wanted the power of Narek. That's the god's name. The demons swayed many of the half-tins and tins from the rebel groups that wanted more power to basically join their side. Millions died, and finally the demons that caused the problems were destroyed. Narek the god is said now to keep a close eye on any outsider that enters his realm. They are not forbidden to enter, but he watches their movements with paranoia. In 2649 to 2701, magnets and lodestones are discovered, and the technology was perfected to be able to use in transportation and hauling heavy loads behind teams of animals. And they are kind of pulled along in sort of like canal type technology, except they all use magnets instead. So there's basically tracks of magnets and opposite magnets on the bottom of the carts. In 2702 to 2805, many paths of magnets are laid out all over Tyria to help the tins with production and transportation. All of the cities of Tyria are connected together during this time, and trade flourishes between the cities. This in turn increases the jobs for constructing things and for products. But again, this makes the tin work harder. Also, towns along the way grow in population and wealth. A horrible wreck kills 300 tins in 2806, and safety measures are implemented to prevent another accident as deadly as this one. Other accidents happen after this, but nothing is as deadly as this one. The details of the accident are kind of vague, but it pretty much came down to a company not following through with safety procedures. Okay, we're running out of time here. 2808 to 2812, no children were born during this period of time, and no one ever figures out why. 2814 to 2821, the first Tyrian Games are held. The games last for 8 years, and those athletes that survive the grueling 8-year games are hailed as glorious heroes and live a life of stardom the rest of their lives. The games are a combination of every sport imaginable, as well as fights to the death and hand-to-hand combat. The games are held once every 100 years. After this period of time, there really isn't any growth or change really in the Tyrian lifestyle. They have a very grueling, hard, laborious life, and they look forward to the Tyrian Games and to the festival days. Every sort of rebellion has been crushed brutally, their bodies destroyed and hung up for display to try to sort of discourage anyone else from opposing the government. And there's kind of been a period of stagnation. The government really hasn't come up with any sort of new enhancements for life. They kind of like the way things are, and anyone that does try to change things is brutally slain and destroyed. That's the history, and I'll see you in another video. Hello, this is Tim, and this is going to be the Tyrian Government for my HexWorld World Building Project. Now, as I've mentioned before, this hex isn't entirely of my making. I really just kind of put the patchwork and finished up the steps that the creator didn't finish. Something that he wanted, in his own words, are as follows. I think for a government, something along the lines of an autocracy or dictatorship might work. But I can also see a communist government making everyone work equally hard for the benefit of all, though it seems to always benefit the ones at the top the most. Basically, he wanted something that made the workers work, even those few and rare times when they didn't want to. sort of like forced like labor camps, almost like prison lockdown where they crank out products and items, and then they're kind of let free for a couple of days on the festival days. That was his main idea. He liked the whole idea that like a very just destructive, hellish party, and then just hellish work during the month. But the breakdown of the government, as you can see in the image, it's the leader or leader. I don't know how you want to pronounce it. It's basically the dictator at the top. All the official decisions are made by him, unless he or she appoints one of the raid, R-A-D-E, to do it for him. Those are kind of the council members below. Leaders normally appoint the next ruler at the moment they are giving office. This does not have to be any family relation to them. It can be anyone that's done them favors in the past. So it is largely who you know when you're to be given the title of leader. There have been probably some dynasties in the past where it is handed down to sons, but that isn't necessarily the case. The next group is the raid. They are the top cabinet members, sometimes called the council that helps the leader make his or her decisions. They're always looking to work together to kind of get on the good side of the leader. So there are semi-frequent accidents to fellow members of the council, which in turn has a power vacuum, and other people can come into the council, usually friends or associates of them. So there's definitely some politics going in with these different groups of government agencies. The raid can only suggest things to the leader. They hold no official power, other than being above the average 10 people in the other classes. There are always 12 members in the raid. The goal of the raid is to ensure that the government fulfills all of the needs of the people and to crush violently any opposition to this viewpoint. They are charged with the mission to seek out any would-be rebellions and to basically kill their leaders and re-educate, in quotes, the followers of these rebels. So some of this re-education can be downright deadly and horrible, and sometimes when the Tynds come out of these re-education camps, they are basically a shadow of who they once were, and they really just live almost, I don't know, kind of like a zombie-like existence. Anyone that opposes the viewpoint of the government is considered a heretic, as the government is said to have been laid down by the god Narek. So if that's the case or not, no one really knows. It's just what everybody thinks. The next group is the Samling. They are basically the government workers and collectors that basically take from the people that produce and give it back, to the people in equal shares. This proves to kind of irritate a lot of people, but in turn they've kind of lived with this for so long that they're used to it. Especially in good years when they produce more than others around them, they have more taken from them. So in some ways this hasn't, I don't know, because they're forced to work. Literally, sometimes by weapon point, things are still produced, but there isn't much motivation other than that. It's mostly by fear that they're motivated. Those with more have more taken away, and those with less are given more. The Samling are accompanied by squads of troops to ensure that the collecting and giving away takes place without any resistance. Any resistance is crushed brutally for an example to others. Again, kind of ruling by fear. The Samling are recruited from the Aberjay, or Arbudge? I don't know, I can't pronounce it. I guess it'd probably be Arbedge. Those are the average workers, the guys at the bottom. The common everyday people. Those that do not share fairly are tortured, imprisoned, or re-educated, in quotes, on the realities of Tynd society, and then are returned, like I said, basically a shadow of who they once were. Those that return from re-education, they I don't know, they have a hard time. They don't have a hard time working, they just have a hard time enjoying themselves at all. They're basically just almost like robots. The next group is the Soldat. They are the troops that answer only to the dictator, the leader at the top, or when they are ordered to listen to the Samling collectors. Basically, there's like 4 classes of people above the average 10 people, the Arbedge. And the class society is very, it's kind of mixed in with government. So if you want to rise to the top, you really need to get into the government. That's where all the movers and shakers are. That is pretty much all of the government and how it's structured. And I'll see you guys in another video. Hello again, this is Tim, and this is going to be a video about Tyria and the climate and weather that are found there. Tyria is kind of a strange place in that there's no water. So without water, that kind of changes how things work. There are only two real seasons in Tyria. There is the hot season and the cooler season, but both are pretty warm, especially by our standards. During the hot season, temperatures range from about 110 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. During the cooler season, temperatures range from 90 degrees to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So even in the cooler season, it's really hot. Like I said, it never rains in Tyria. There are no rivers, no lakes, no seas. Water doesn't exist at all. And nothing living in Tyria needs water to live. I know this is kind of a pretty fantastical thing to try to wrap your mind around, since water is basically the basis of life, pretty much. But there really are no clouds in the sky, as there is no water vapor. Tins are actually burned by water, so it is good that it doesn't rain here. And tins will be in for a shock and a lot of skin burns if they leave the safety of this realm and travel to other realms when they are combined in the hexes. The creatures are basically able to flee this hex, because like I said, every hex has been isolated for a period of time of 5,000 years. The weather, there really is no weather. Like the only thing that would probably be considered weather is that it's very windy, and sometimes there are dust storms when literally like broken down, I don't know, those small fragments of the black volcanic glass kind of get picked up by this dust. There can be quite sharp shards that fly into you, so some of these dust storms, especially the stronger winds, can be kind of deadly, because literally it's just glass flying at you. So those are kind of nasty. But other than that, there really is no weather, so it's kind of strange in that regard. So no water, no rains. The only storms are really kind of dust storms. And that's pretty much it. I'll see you in another video. Hello again, this is Tim. This is going to be a short video because there's not too many strange effects that are going on in Tyria. Most of them are pretty normal. As far as the colors, I'll start with those, I guess. Like I said, most of the place is black volcanic glass, and there's also the reddish glow of the hellfires that rip through, and the big hellfire pits and the flames kind of rise into the sky. So there's a lot of things that have like kind of a reddish tone to them. In addition, while I won't go into too much of the detail with the magical ley lines in the sky, they do give off some different colorations and different colors as well that kind of reflect off things and give them different colors. So into the strange effects, on the party nights or the festival nights that are, at the end of every month, the priests of Narek summon the night sun to oversee the festivities. This is a very large black sort of floating disc in the sky. And in addition to this, the sky takes on more of a dark red glow. Normally it's just sort of like a black void in the sky. That doesn't really there's no stars, there's nothing like that at all. But on this one night, this black sun, this black disk kind of floats in the sky. And it's kind of like what a black light would be. So colors are enhanced, and like whites are strangely brighter. Again, this is kind of going with the whole party atmosphere. So it's kind of like a fantasy version of a black light at a party, especially if everyone's painted in bright colors. And that usually is the case on festival nights. People are covered in all sorts of things. I won't go into details, but the parties are pretty no holds barred. So I just found a picture of a cool looking picture with a black light, kind of like illuminating it. And another thing about the place and the strange effects, it is sometimes said that when people stare into the hellfire pits and into the fires, the Tynds can sometimes see the future. They are kind of cautious and take this with a grain of salt, however, because sometimes the visions that they receive are full of half-truths and lies, because of their source, I guess. But that is pretty much the strange effects, the colors, and I'll see you in another video. Hello, this is Tim, and this video is going to consist of the calendar for Tyria. A lot of people don't go into this much detail when they make a setting. I find it gives a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more detail, and it lets you kind of immerse yourself in the sort of setting a little bit more as well. And depending on how you're running your games, this will kind of keep track of when the party days are if you're role-playing in this setting. Okay, so to start off, the year in Tyria consists of 11 months, and every month consists of 30 days. So that's not very unique or special. The thing that is different is that after the months are complete, there are the 2 to 4 party days or festival days. They're called Hodgetid, which they basically mean festival or party. And these are the end of the month where everybody stops working. They completely just break down and just have a great party. No holds barred. There's no taboos. Demons walk the earth in the guise of Tynds. And even the government supports it and the religion supports it. So it really is just 2 to 4 days of just balls to the wall partying. I'm going to go through and butcher the names of the months and what they mean, and tell you when the party days are. First month is Begind. It means start, followed by 4 party days. Second month is Onsk. It means desire, and then that's followed by 3 party days. Betz Temels means destiny, and that's followed by 3 party days. Berompt is glorious, and that's followed by 2 party days. Ild, which means glow, is followed by 2 party days. Mullig is possible, and that's 2 party days after that. Frugbar means fertile. It's followed by 2 party days. Fornoldjels, I probably butchered that, means pleasure, and that's followed by 2 party days. And Svarlig means responsible, and that's followed by 3 party days. Haven, or Haven, means revenge, and that's followed by 3 party days. Odelagels means destruction, and that's followed by 4 party days. And the party days at the end of the year are usually the most destructive. As you notice, there are usually 2 party days in the middle of the year, and there's 4 and 3 party days at the beginning, 4 and 3 party days at the end of the year. So usually the beginning and the end of the year is really when the party days definitely, and everybody puts their worst foot forward, I don't know, and they really give it all and see how much they can do and how much fun they can have. But that's pretty much the calendar of Tyria, and I'll see you in another video. Hello, this is Tim, and this will be about the flora and fauna, the flowers, plants, and animals, as well as some possible, I don't know, more monsters. I guess I could have included some of these in the monsters video, but I'm going to put them here instead. The first video is the Blontia, Blontia, and they are flying creatures of black and blue skin, muscle, and bone that are immune to electricity, and they shock their prey when they bite. They are featherless and have only 1 leg with a large webbed foot that holds they pretty much hold it behind them when they fly. They like to hang upside down with this foot when they're resting. The creature has a forked beak with barbs that rips flesh from their prey. These creatures are predators, and they have a 10-foot wingspan and reside mostly on the tops of the very tall sort of obelisk spires of black volcanic glass. They have 6 wings that flap together at the same time, but they're separated by some space. They are known to live in groups, but a lot of the males are usually solitary. Um, they have tufts of white fur on their backs, and some Blancia are known to actually be friendly if they are provided with a meat source. The next thing is it's called a demon vine or a devil vine. These plant-like things are very movable and they're very violent. They sprout out where blood of demons or devils has spilled on the volcanic glass ground. Um, it's a long vine with sharp barbed hooks that are tiny, um, and they basically lash out and they try to blend in with the black volcanic glass and then kind of just grab you while you're moving past. They're fairly long and they like to coil themselves up. They kind of attack like a snake does, and they attach themselves and try to wind you up and pull you in. They constrict their victims, and they'll also kind of try to squeeze the blood out of things through the lacerations that they do with their hooks. They feed on blood, and they will die if they don't have a food source for 8 weeks. So they're pretty nasty. The ghoul worm is a living strand of negative energy that feeds on flesh in the material plane. These worms are most often found in the bodies and corpses, especially rotting corpses of animals. They have the ability to control flesh by possessing it and using the flesh as a ghoul worm host. So these things are kind of parasites. This host they use as a means to consume other flesh in larger quantities. Ghoul worms are susceptible to things like removed disease and such like that, and they are considered undead. So they control corpses, they control living hosts and slowly devour them until they die. This thing's pretty nasty. These things also kind of fly free during the dust storms that are happen very often in Tyria. These things are all around nasty. In fact, if you're a GM, you might not want to use these things too often because these things will probably creep some people out. Glorash are translucent, papery, dry creatures with sort of an oily outside to them. They float through the air and they latch on to unsuspecting travelers. They bite them with their many teeth that line their bodies. Their mouth is a darker colored tissue that absorbs the digested material because they exude powerful acidic juices as well as a poison that can paralyze. They are about a foot in radius and they are about 3 inches thick. So basically they latch on, paralyze things, and slowly digest them. And they fly through the air. Alright, I don't have any pretty pictures for the rest of these creatures, so I'm just going to talk about them. In addition to the demons and devils that kind of reside in the Hex and come up, especially during the festival days, they have manipulated a lot of the creatures as well. They've kind of twisted them and kind of picture someone that abuses an animal. That's what demons do a lot, and they kind of, twist what they originally were. So whatever animal you can come up with, including sort of the stupid, quote unquote D&D monsters that are kind of like mixes and matches of animals, those are all very possible in this Hex. Some of the other animals, some of the animals actually eat the black volcanic glass, but most of them sort of eat other animals. Usually, I guess the food chain, the ecosystem would be the plants that slowly digest the black volcanic glass or absorb the energy from the magical ley lines. Some of the plants actually eat other animals. There are dark fairies that kind of fly around, and they kind of glow. And they're kind of a mix between like a dark fairy and a firefly, in that they go into hibernation once a month, and they really only come out for the festival days. They're kind of like locusts in their description and how they look. Um, and they breed, and then they hibernate again. They're chaotic and nasty, and they kind of mainly focus on mating with other dark fairies before they go into hibernation. There are sort of like these demon gorilla-looking things. Rumors are they might have been summoned as well. They're slightly more intelligent than normal gorillas, and they're actually domesticated and mostly non-violent. These are sort of used as like pack mules and sometimes riding animals if they're fairly intelligent. A lot of them have like heavy backpacks that they wear. They will fight if they're cornered or abused, but they really can't be trained for battle. So those are some of the animals. The Tyria plants, I have to emphasize that the Tyria plants do not need water. They pretty much feed off of the magical power of the ley lines in the sky. A lot of the plant life will actually grow off of the spires. And a lot of the birds in the area will feed off these plants, and they kind of hover up in the air. There's three real plants that are interesting. One is the Lontilla flower. Lontilla flower only springs up in the volcanic glass where an act of sex was performed, especially during party days. Because of this, lovers prefer the wilds to those cramped offices and labor camp housing that they normally reside in. A Lontilla flower has a dark black stem, red leaves, black, and sort of like black lines in the center of the leaves. The flower itself is a sort of a purple, and the outsides are a vibrant orange. This flower lives for as long in weeks as the sexual act lasted in minutes. There's a Lontusa flower, which is the same thing. It's similar. It's slightly different in color, and that's for an act of sex that happened where devils and demons made love to a Tynd. And there are also mutterweeds. Mutterweeds are sort of a grass-like weed / parasite. They sort of have a sleep-inducing sonic attack. They crawl over slowly and then begin to grow out of the thing that is still sleeping there, and eventually they kill it. It then uses the corpse to produce seeds, and then animates the corpse to distribute the seeds. So this is kind of a disturbing Johnny Appleseed kind of thing with the mutterweeds. And they also kind of have this low droning noise that basically sounds like someone muttering. As I said before, many of these plants grow on the tall, sort of obelisk-type spires of black volcanic glass. Some Tynds have actually formed sort of farms, and they have, ropes and structures that they use to extend the growing area for these sorts of plants. A lot of red fungus and sort of mosses are also grown and used for food, and these also absorb the magical energy of the ley lines. So most of this activity is actually going on above the surface of the ground. The ground is mostly black volcanic glass, and on these spires there's a lot of plant life, and there's a lot of animal life because that's where the plants are. Hello, this is Tim again, and this is going to be a video about the light source of Tyria. As I started to say in my original videos, something different is what I was looking for here. We live in a place where it has a sun and a moon, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to see something a little bit different, something a little bit more mythological, or just strange in an interesting way. Some of the light from that kind of filters out to the hex is from the Hellfire pits. Now again, these are the pits that were created when the Tynd were summoned originally as demons before they were changed. Literally, the god ripped through the black volcanic glass with the power of the summoning. And that is one of the main sources of light. Just the red, dull glow of these large, just monstrous fires from some plane of existence where it's not very nice, and most things, hurt and die. Some hell, Hades, something like that. But another source of light are these, like a lattice work of glowing magical lines in the sky. Ley lines are sort of supposed to be like these lines on the ground that have strong, potent magic abilities, or they can give magic users extra power if they're on these certain lines. And if there's some sort of connection or nexus point between two lines, it's supposed to be even more powerful. And that's very true in Tyria. Now, when you think of these lines, I grabbed a few pictures that I thought kind of brought forth the feeling of them. They literally change in color, and if you imagine in the sky, if each ley line was kind of like a string of yarn of varying colors, and you connected one string to one side of the hex and another string to the other side of the hex, and you did this about 1,000,000 times probably, over a 200-mile hex, you would have this, not quite a quilt, but just lines with space in between them. And this sort of undulates like the surface of the ocean. So at times, different levels in different areas of the hex will be lower, some will be higher. There actually are not really waves, but it kind of appears to be waves in the sort of framework of the entire lattice work of ley lines. So picture just in the sky, lines of varying colors, glowing in different ways. This is definitely improved upon when the black light, the night sun, is summoned for the festival nights, so it throws off even more color. But these lines are literally pure magical energy that sway, bend, move up and down, and they cross each other in different random patterns. They flux. So literally like two pieces of yarn string on top of each other, and they can move, especially since it's so windy. The wind changes the patterns as well. Sometimes these lines of magical energy and glowing lights, they change in color or hue. They're kind of like the northern lights in our world. But the ley lines can fuel a magician's power. They can, depending on what system you use, you can have different effects, but usually these are very good points for magicians to hang out in. A lot of plants and animal life that absorb this magical energy, like the nexus points as well. So maybe they're sort of contested, sort of like a water hole would be contested in a normal setting. They appear sort of like ropes of misty gas, but no one truly knows what they are. Maybe some high-level magician or magic user, psychic, whatever you want to use. Like I said, these high spires and towers litter the surface of the world so that people can get closer to this magical energy, and that's where a lot of the plant life and funguses are also sort of found. And there's different levels on these spires, so that when the latticework of magical energy changes up and down, sort of like tides, but like I said before, it's not consistent, it's random. Depending on where the latticework of ley lines is in the sky, you can go to different levels of the platform to literally have the stream of magical energy flowing through you. So that's pretty much what gives you light. It's the hellfire pits, it's the lattice work of magical ley lines in the sky, and it all sort of reflects off the shiny black volcanic glass. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, this is Tim, and this is going to be the last video, or last part of the video for Tyria. I'm actually doing this current time because I lost the video for it. But the language of Tyria is actually called Tyrish, Tyrish. The way that the language looks is very Korean in aspect. So if you want to go online and look up Korean characters, you could do so. The words that I've used for this setting, however, are from Danish. And I wanted to do this because I really couldn't find too many other dead languages out there that had a lot of words. So I went to a Danish website, found up some words, and that is what I used to label the cities, and I thought that would be a good way to name characters. So, thanks for watching. This is the final part of the Tyria video, and hopefully I'll go back and make some more videos of some of the other hexes. Thanks for watching.